Well, here's the blue car as it sits. Latest upgrade is back to the sleeper Geo Metro hood, no scoop. Glass headlights and clear corners. Driving lights, new clear lenses. Right now I'm running the American Racing rims. Kind of a jumble. There's the Mega Squirt unit right now while I'm testing the car. It's sitting on the floor. It'll get buttoned up back behind the console after I get done testing, getting done all my adjustments and rework and things like that. Now the interior of the car, I reupholstered the door cards with some silver, I don't know, carbon fiber weave looking stuff. It's just vinyl. Brightens up the inside of the car pretty well. And these are Honda Civic seats out of a real old Honda. About got the fuzz worn off of those. There's my TV antenna. Fell down. It's a suction cup that sticks to the windshield. It fell down, and I think I'm going to hide that behind the pillar trim when I get tucking things away. Typical Metro convertible. I've been running all of this stuff on the back for a long time, and had some people that don't like those fart cans, but I tucked that one back up. Even if you're standing up on the car, you can hardly see it, and it doesn't stick out past the bumper at all. It's back in there about 2 inches. Up in the trunk, I've been running for quite some time. Hart Professional Series amplifiers. That's a 4-channel. It's 150 watts, true RMS. Not if lightning strikes. It's actual 150 watts times 4. It goes out to each of the speaker positions from the original car. Up in the front corners I've got a Cove coaxial set. It's got 3/4 inch. Right now I'm running silk domes. I've got some titanium domes to replace those. And this little amplifier is 800 watts. And 800 watts in real watts. It's the subwoofer I'm running a Heart Attack 10-inch sub. In a 1.2 inch enclosure, it's ported. Doesn't take up a whole lot of room in the trunk, but it leaves a little bit of room for groceries or whatever. I keep my gauges covered up. The sun gets on them. But at the top, this top gauge on the pillar pod is my oil pressure. This oil temperature is below it. This one is my fuel pressure. This one is Boost, AFR, and Innovate MTX series. Little knob on the side is for my electronic boost controller. And also up on the dash you can see my GPS antenna. All of those things come down to plug into the laptop so that I can watch TV, do GPS, and also access the Mega Squirt, and I've got power coming out for that. And I've also run an auxiliary mini stereo jack out from the radio head unit so that I can play the MP3s in the little netbook. They play right through the stereo system. I've been adjusting the hood. I think I've got it to the point where it will operate now. So there's the engine bay. Most of you guys know all of the things that I've already done to the car. A lot of preparation work. Last year I had put the Swift GT brakes, and I did the 4-wheel disc brake conversion. So now it's got 4-wheel disc brakes. I'm sure that it does a lot for the braking force, but it looks cool. On the engine, You know, I had trouble with the adjustable cam pulley. Got all of those bugs worked out. And down in here, the trigger wheel, you know that I had to make the trigger wheel to work with the Mega Squirt. Down in here, I had to drill a hole through the inner fender precisely so that I could get my coolant pump. This line right here, insulated, that is the heat exchanger coolant for this gizmo up here, which is a water to air intercooler. Water goes across the core this way, air comes in right through this big pipe, blows through this way, and it comes out here, makes a 90-degree turn, comes out here. Now on the bottom of these tanks right here, I've got the blow-off valve mounted, and also my intake air temperature gauge, another requirement for the Mega Squirt, but you can see the blow-off valve right down in here. Yeah, right behind my finger. And then right about here is where the intake air temperature goes in. A little bit harder to see down here on a shelf that I put underneath, mounted underneath, on top of the transmission, underneath the intercooler. There are 3 Suzuki Swift igniters. Those fire individual coil unplugged units. These are off of a Ford V8, specifically a 5-liter Mustang, and I've got 3 of those, one on each spark plug. These are the control wires that come up, and I've got those covered with a reflective material that's supposed to protect wiring from high temperatures, good up to about 1,000 degrees. And the rest of it's pretty much box stock. My injectors, I changed my injectors out. The 210 cc per minute stock injectors got replaced with 460 cc per minute injectors. Those were high Z injectors out of a Mazda RX-7 rotary engine. I think it's the turbocharged version. All this stuff up here on the intake's all kind of box stock. The only thing that's different on the fuel supply, I used the original Turbo3 fuel rail. I've got a fuel pressure, an electronic fuel pressure gauge up in on the dash, and so right on the end of that is, it's got a sensor. It's kind of a big and bulbous affair, but seems to be very accurate. Up here is the fill point for my air to water intercooler system. You can see out the other side of it, that's I've got that line insulated, and it's not to really keep it chilled, but just so that it doesn't pick up any ambient temperature as it goes through the engine bay. That's my vacuum manifold block, and a lot of people say that's overkill, but it's convenient because if I need to make any tests, I've got 2 extra ports there that I can get into. But basically it's got 1 line to the blow-off valve, 1 line to the Mega Squirt, 1 line to my boost gauge, and instead of running 1 line to each one, I ran separate lines in case I've got to pinch one off. I don't lose my complete vacuum signal. As a matter of fact, up in the cockpit I can swap those. If I have a problem with 1 line, I can swap to one of the other 2, say to run the controls on my Mega Squirt. The wideband O2 sensor controls, it comes out here, it has a big lump. That's the place where the actual sensor itself, which is down there on the exhaust, if you can see it. So right on the inlet side of the catalytic converter. Anyhow, it comes up here and plugs into that wiring harness. That wiring harness runs up in the dash. And on the controls, you can see that I've got the wires just come kind of up through grommets individually, but underneath that pod I took up most of the room with vacuum lines and electrical connections, so that everything that has got to go to those gauges and everything that's got power, I mean there's power distribution up there, there's ground distribution, and I've got the individual signal wires, they all come into that pod. So when I bust it off of there, that's kind of a rat's nest of wiring. And talking about rat's nests, I've got a knock sensor. It's the Knock Sense Boris makes those up in Canada. Now it's a little unit, but I've got adjustments to make on that, and also I don't know where I'm going to stash it, so the wiring that I've got up in there is just kind of coiled up and enough room for me to pull it out, make my adjustments. This line that comes down right here, that's the LED, and whenever you get a knock event, that LED flashes. And you'd think down in the cockpit, as low as it is, that you might overlook that, but believe me, that LED that Boris uses is the brightest green LED I've ever seen in my life. And when it comes on, it'll light up the entire cockpit. So you know when something's happening when you get that knock. Also the red missile launch switch right there. When it's in its closed position like that and the switch is off, then it turns off the boost regulator, and that knob basically just comes out of circuit, and the boost goes back down to the wastegate's stock value, 7 psi. And so just flipping that switch off, I can take it back down to 7 psi. There's the actuator, and the hoses run down to the body of the turbo on the cold side, and then the other one goes down to the wastegate actuator. And with the switch off, I'm running 7 psi. It's the base of the wastegate regulator. And then when I turn it on, I can adjust it. Actually, it'll go up to 100 psi. But my plan is I will never see more than 21 pounds of boost. And a lot of that is because the controller that I built, the map sensor that I installed in there, is a 2.5 bar unit, and so it won't do much over a 21 would be its max, and probably 20 would be leave you enough safety margin. So anyway, that's the most boost that I can generate, and I don't know that I'll even want to run that much. I'm going to try to do 2-tier tuning, one for performance, and then another one that I can dial back down so that I get, you know, decent mileage when I use it as a commuter car, because I drive this car to work every day in the summer. One thing that I've missed operating this car this season, I have not driven this car yet, except to move it around from the backyard and park it where it is now. And then I took the running Turbo3 system out of the car and dropped everything else that you see here in.